Good afternoon, everybody. The California Educator Reporting System, or CERS, gives early access to statewide assessment data, and today we are going to focus on how you can access your summative assessment data in CERS. This training session, brought to you by the California Department of Education, is designed for all current and potential CERS users. Today is Module 1 of the Accessing Summative Assessment Results in CERS training, and Module 1 is going to focus on the Summative English Language Proficiency Assessments for California, or ELPAC, the Summative Alternate ELPAC, and the California Spanish Assessment, or CSA. All right, let's do some introductions. My name is Nikki Antonovich. I work for the Sacramento County Office of Education. I will be your producer for today. Your session is going to be led by some excellent trainers who have a lot of experience with CERS. Today we have with us Teresa Blanchard from the Office of the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools and Alicia Sanborn from Washington Unified School District. And for our agenda today, here's what we're going to be covering. By the end of today's training, you will be able to access the scale score ranges for the summative assessments. You're going to know where to find those. You're going to understand how the results are structured for summative ELPAC, summative alternate ELPAC, and CSA. You can access summative assessment results in CERS, list the different ways summative assessment data is broken down for each assessment. You're going to be able to locate those CERS resources, and finally, you will get answers to your CERS questions. Now, before we get started, let's take a quick look at where we've been and where we're going. Last summer and last fall, we offered 2 training sessions in July and October. Those were the Introduction to CERS for teachers and the Introduction to CERS for test coordinators and administrators. And those covered, it's very introductory, right? A CERS overview, how to access summative results, how to access interim assessment data, and the resources available. And then earlier this year, we offered an intermediate CERS training, CERS Beyond the Basics. And again, we held 2, one for teachers and one for test coordinators and administrators. And these trainings went deeper into CERS features for those intermediate to advanced CERS users. And in your resource guide is the link, again, to that web page that houses all of those past training archived materials. Now let's look forward and talk about where we're going. We are excited with these upcoming releases of the 2024-25 summative assessment results. And so that's what our 2 modules within this training series are focused on. This is module 1 this week. And we're going to look at summative assessment scores, again, for the ELPAC, the alternate ELPAC, and the CSA. And then next week, we're presenting Module 2, and we're going to focus on scores from Smarter Balanced ELA and Mathematics, the California Science Test, or CAASPP, the California Alternate Assessments, or CAAs as we call them, for ELA, Math, and Science. And we know that you will probably want to take what you learned today and explore your own 2024-25 results in CERS, so let's talk about when those are available. Officially, results from the 24-25 summative ELPAC and summative alternate ELPAC were going to be released in mid-May, and it is mid-May, and they have been released. They are now available in your live CERS environment. Results for the CSA are still to be determined, but remember, this is the first operational year of that expanded writing and speaking domain for CSA. And we still have standard setting workshops to be conducted, and thresholds and student score reports are all tentatively planned to be brought to the State Board of Education in September. So for CSA results, they're expected to be available with the score data file and the student score reports in December, after all that quality control is completed on all this new data. And when those results start flowing into CERS, like I said, is still to be determined at this point. But again, we want to point out how exciting it is that the 2024-25 summative data loads into CERS so much sooner than that public release of data on the test results for California's Assessments website. That happens in October. And before I hand you off, one last exciting thing about CERS is CERS houses detailed and actionable data to help educators reflect on what went well, what changes can be made for improving teaching and learning in the classroom for the new school year. This is going to be an exciting month of digging into our data. Teachers and other educators appreciate knowing how their students performed on the summative assessments before going out to summer break, and many also use that time to plan for the following school year. So imagine all educators now have the ability to start planning that much sooner because, like I said, those summative ELPAC and summative alternate ELPAC results are rolling into CERS. We do want to give a quick reminder to any administrators that are with us today that teacher level users, when they access CERS, it requires both a TOMS role and students being assigned to them in CERS through a process called rostering. So TOMS, the Test Operations Management System, is where you set up your users. That gives access, but teachers need those students tied to them through that rostering process. So if you have any additional questions on this process, we recommend the Managing Users and Student Groups section of the Introduction to CERS microlearning videos, which are also linked in your resource guide. All right, that is all the housekeeping and background that you need. I'm going to hand you over to your trainers, and we're going to dig into CERS.
Thank you, Nikki, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Blanchard. I am from the Office of the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, and we want to start our time together today with an overview of CERS. So I'm going to go ahead and keep us moving. As we jump into our training content, we want to do a quick reminder that CERS is a one-stop shop for state assessment results that allows teachers and administrators to access detailed student performance information for summative CAASPP, or the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, and ELPAC, as well as interim assessment data. CERS offers LEA staff the earliest access to the latest assessment data, as Nikki said, as well as historical assessment data. We know that current and prior year student test results, when combined with other student information, such as grades, classroom assignments, teacher observations, and more, can help to guide instruction and improve student learning. We would also like to point out that CERS was created with educator input, including California educators. Input from the field was instrumental in developing CERS to ensure educators have the information that they need about their students' progress. And CERS continues to have enhancements and features that have been added. We're so excited to share and highlight some of those for you today. And the LEA staff feedback that you've given and you continue to provide is welcome and can be sent to CDE at any time. Now, one benefit of CERS is that educators can view some of the student summative results prior to the public release of assessment data, allowing them the ability to analyze student performance in a timely manner following assessments. For example, the public release of some summative assessments usually occurs in the fall, but as we learned on an earlier slide and from Nikki, that CERS allows educators to view those results just, in mid-May and in late May and all the way through summer as scores become available. For all summative assessments, we will see the grade level assessed, average scale score for the group, number of students in the results, student score distribution by overall achievement or performance level, individual student reports or ISRs, and additional detailed information. Now for ELPAC, additional information includes composite and domain level information, which we're going to highlight for you today in some of our live demos. And as you may know, especially if you've joined us before, from the Introduction to CERS trainings, there is an excellent training tool called the CERS Sandbox. For all the system demonstrations and explorations that we do for you, we'll be using this CERS Sandbox. The CERS Sandbox allows educators to get familiar with the features of CERS in a non-secure environment. The CERS Sandbox is a public website, so the URL can be shared with anyone interested in learning more about CERS. The Sandbox has all the same features and functions as the live CERS environment. Now, the Sandbox uses fictitious data, and the interim assessment items in the CERS Sandbox are publicly released sample items. Specifically, the CERS Sandbox does not have the test questions from the live and secure interim assessments, which is really helpful for training purposes. And this makes the Sandbox a great tool for exploration individually or in group trainings. And there is no need to worry about keeping the items or results or data or student information secure when using that sandbox. Now, we also want to share two quick differences between the CERS sandbox and the live CERS environment. First, please note that the role needs to be selected or chosen from the drop-down menu before entering the CERS sandbox. Now, in the live CERS environment, users will not select a role. The live CERS environment uses the role or roles that have been assigned in TOMS. Choosing a role in the sandbox can be helpful for users who want to learn how CERS might appear or appears for the different roles for different staff that you might work with and that you might need to train. For example, an administrator can choose a teacher role and see the teacher view of CERS and the features available in that role in the sandbox. And we'll try to highlight some of those different views today during our demos. Second, the purpose of the sandbox is for training on CERS features and functions, not for analyzing data. Some of the assessment rules, like alternate assessments for all role, do not apply here. So you may see a student in the sandbox with results from an alternate assessment and a general assessment. Now we are going to do our first demonstration of this training. And just to reiterate, we will be using that CERS sandbox. So I'm going to take us to the CAASPP-ELPAC.org website. And actually, I'm going to go one level back. So if I'm on that main CAASPP-ELPAC.org website, I can see this tile right here for our CERS system. I'm going to click on that tile. There is another link just in case you are used to going up here in this menu. That first link is available as well for CERS. Now, when you are on this CERS resources webpage, the live environment is on the left, but we're going to be using, as I said, that CERS sandbox on the right-hand side. But I do want to highlight, just while we're here, a couple really great resources. One is the user guide. And if you click on this user guide, it's going to give you access to a lot of information on how to use CERS, especially to view, again, the summative assessment results. I can, if I want to review with someone or share some step-by-step directions, it is all in here in that user guide. There's also an interpretive guide, some instructional videos, and some quick reference guides that are available. But we are going to spend some time in the CERS sandbox just to learn some of the features that are available for you. So I'm going to I would like to enter as a sample high school administrator, and I'm going to click on Enter Sandbox. So once that loads, it's going to take me to my home page for the CERS sandbox, and I'm going to search by school. Now, if I have a certain student in mind, I can go ahead and enter that SSID and search by student, but I'd like to go in and take a look at how my 12th graders did on the summative ELPAC or the summative alternate ELPAC, or even the Spanish assessment, that CSA. So when I hit search, it takes me to my sample high school grade 12 page where I can make sure that it's giving me the most recent school year of data. I can dig in if I'd like to some previous years here, but I would like to just see how my students did because I have scores coming in right now as we speak from our ELPAC assessments. And the CSA is already selected here, so that popped up right away on my results page. I can also select grade 12 summative ELPAC. I can select grade 12 summative alternate ELPAC, and I'm going to leave that CSA on here too because I want to take a look at how my students did for, again, my grade 12 cohort. When I have selected my assessments, I can click that X and it will update my results page, and you get to see an overview of and a summary of all of those 3 assessments. So when we look at, for example, the summative alternate ELPAC, I have 340 results, and it gives the performance levels here. We have 3 levels, and it defaults with a % of the student score distribution for this assessment. And if I would like to see that in as a number, I can change that display value and take a look and see I have 131 students that scored a level 3 on my summative alternate ELPAC that we may need to dig into their local criteria for our reclassification and have conversations about these students, which is very exciting. I can show results and get a list of those students, and it will give me alphabetical by last name as a default, but I can actually sort the levels. It'll give me the first click, lowest to highest, and a second click, highest to lowest. And look at that, I already have a list of my 131 students that I might want to follow up with to try to see if maybe we can reclassify some of these students if they meet all 4 local criteria before we get to the end of the school year or graduation for these students, in this case for my grade 12 students. So I can hide those results and look at my summative general ELPAC here. And the same thing, I have 161 possible reclassification candidates that scored that level 4 on my summative ELPAC, which is so exciting. I can sort that level and get, again, a very quick list of students. And if I like this list and I want to share this with maybe my EL site coordinator at my site, I can actually export this as a CSV based on some of the filtering that I did, and it will actually download, and I can view some of those scores in a CSV or an Excel format. And here's an example of that. And I can filter this and sort it however I'd like to follow up with that data. Again, if I was a high school principal, I also might have some students that took that Spanish assessment, whether that be for my Spanish courses or a dual immersion program. And so I can see at a glance, there were 346 students that took this assessment, 135 that scored the reporting range 3, and each of the reporting ranges are listed. I can, again, just like all of our assessments here, show those results and sort by level or by the scale score. And I can see these students that scored that highest range or the lowest range, maybe students that I would recommend for some intervention in the future, or we could use that information for planning purposes with my teachers and my staff. So that is a quick and easy just demo from the school admin perspective. Now, if I was a classroom teacher, I want to show you how the view is a little bit different. So if I'm back in the CERS sandbox, I'm going to enter as, let's do a teacher at the sample elementary school level. And I'm going to enter that sandbox, clicking that button. And again, I could search by an individual SSID, but I'm going to actually go ahead. I would like to see my 5th graders that may be going on to 6th grade or maybe transferring to a middle school. I want to know how they did on some of these ELPAC assessments or the CSA. So I'm going to click that plus sign, and it's going to give me a chance to select some other assessments. You can see also it lists the interim assessments. We've got some other, you'll see the CAA assessments in here, and that will highlight next week if you come back to join us. But I'm looking for the grade 5 summative ELPAC, the summative alternate ELPAC. I'm going to uncheck the math summative here today. And I love pulling up the CSA so you can see what that looks like as well if you have students taking that Spanish assessment. So it automatically updates the results view, and I can change those percents to numbers. Again, I really like seeing how many students are scoring for each of those performance levels, and I can again sort. This is a pretty much the same view that our administrators are seeing and viewing, with the ability to sort by level in the student results view table. So there's a lot of information here, and I know that my co-presenter will dig into some of these other features, but we just want to show you how to access the assessments to pull those up. We have summative alternate ELPAC here out of 71 available scores from my 5th grade cohort or group of students that I work with. Maybe I have access to all of the grade 5 students. There's 22 that scored that level 3 on the summative alternate ELPAC. That again may be a reclassification candidate if they indeed meet all 4 reclassification criteria and that local criteria set for your LEA. And so very exciting. I can sort and get that list of students. Again, teachers also have the ability to export as a CSV. And there are some advanced filters here that are available for both teachers and administrators. And I do want to highlight a couple of those. If you are looking for just, assessments for only your English learners, you can actually expand that, click on English learners. Or maybe you want to look at how your RFEP students are doing with some of these assessments. Obviously, for English learners, they will have ELPAC results if they took the assessments, and those assessments will continue to populate in the live CERS environment for you as scores and assessments are available. So those are advanced features. Every time you select that, it will change just to show you. Now I only have 16 results for that CSA. And when I uncheck that, that went back to 74. So you can see as you select certain filters, that will change your view. And again, you can add filters or narrow down some of these results or select certain assessments and then export that as a CSV file to filter and to save on your own device or computer. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and come back to our presentation. And we have just so much information to cover. So we're going to go ahead and continue. We want to review the results for the Summative ELPAC, Summative Alternate ELPAC, and the CSA. And make sure that you understand how the results are structured. As we dig deeper into CERS and we continue to see what's available in our CERS environment. So we will start with the Summative ELPAC, and we're going to review the structure of the Summative ELPAC scores. And let's start with the domain level. So remember, there are 4 domains for the ELPAC assessment: the listening, speaking, reading, and writing domains. Now, domain performance is separated into 3 performance descriptors, as opposed to 4 levels, because there are fewer items within a domain, and we can't be as precise as we can at the overall test level or composite scores. Now, for each domain, a student will receive one of 3 possible performance descriptors. There's beginning to develop, somewhat to moderately developed, and well developed. Now, the domains are rolled into the composite level. Now, specifically, listening and speaking combine into the oral language composite, and reading and writing combine into the written language composite. At the composite level, students will receive a score which falls into one of 4 performance levels, and we will cover the levels on this next slide. Now, the oral and written composites roll into the overall score, which falls into one of 4 performance levels. Now, the performance levels for the composite levels and overall score are the same. The level 1 is minimally developed, level 2, somewhat developed, level 3, moderately developed, and level 4 is well developed. As we mentioned, at the domain level, students only receive a domain descriptor, no score. At the composite and overall level, students do receive a score. This is called a scale score. Now, scale scores permit the direct comparison of test results from one administration of the Summative ELPAC to another. Unlike raw scores that allow only comparisons between students under the same test form, scale scores provide a common reference statewide, making interpretation easier. Now, please note that the scale score ranges are not the same for each grade level. In fact, I was looking at this today with a few teachers and looking at the differences and how the scale scores kind of adjust from grade to grade. A table containing the Summative ELPAC scale score ranges can be found in your resource guide, so I encourage you to take a look at that. And one question that is often raised is, how are the oral and written language portions of the test weighted? Now, in kindergarten, the weighting of the Summative ELPAC overall score is 70% oral language and 30% written language. In grades 1 through 12, however, the weighting of the Summative ELPAC overall score is 50% oral language and 50% written language. Again, that is for grades 1 through 12. Now, next up, we are going to dig into the Summative Alternate ELPAC. The Summative Alternate ELPAC results are used to determine how well English learner students with the most significant cognitive disabilities as determined by their IEP team are progressing annually toward English language proficiency. Results are also used to assist LEAs and schools in the ongoing process of program monitoring and evaluation until they meet all reclassification criteria. Summative alternate ELPAC results include an overall scale score and performance level. The overall scale score indicates one of 3 performance levels: fluent English proficient, level 3, intermediate English learner, or level 2, and novice English learner, level 1. The alternate ELPAC uses integrated task types and not domains. Task types include expressive and receptive items that allow students to use their preferred communication modes to respond. Receptive task types incorporate both reading and listening, while expressive task types incorporate both speaking and writing. And lastly, we are going to cover the scores for the California Spanish Assessment, or the CSA as we like to call it. And the California Assessment, the California Spanish Assessment, or CSA, is a Spanish reading/language arts test administered to students in grades 3 through 8 and high school. The CSA is an optional assessment that is intended for students who are seeking a measure to recognize their Spanish-specific reading, writing mechanics, and listening skills after receiving instruction in Spanish. For grades 3 through 8, students receive an overall scale score. For high school, students receive an overall oral composite and written composite scale score. For all grades, the score levels are level 1, level 2, and level 3. This information is tentative, pending board approval, which is anticipated in September 2025. Now, once approved by the State Board of Education, the intent is to provide a measure suitable to be used in part for the state seal of biliteracy, which is so exciting. Now, the CDE has also created a one-page document that provides LEAs with guidance for analyzing the CSA results, and this link is in your resource guide. All right, now I get the pleasure, of turning this over to my awesome colleague, Alicia. Alicia, are you there?
I am here. Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon. And now that we have given a short overview of these assessments, it's time for us to take that deep dive that Teresa mentioned into CERS to look at those ELPAC results in a little bit more detail. Sorry, I got click happy. And we are excited to announce a new CERS feature for the Summative ELPAC. In the past, when viewing Summative ELPAC results at the domain level, some students had a blank field under certain domains, and the system didn't list and tell us why that domain was blank. But guess what? Now, when you're viewing the Summative ELPAC results and you select to view them by domain, you will see a domain level indicator where applicable. This domain level indicator shows information about which students were not tested or were exempted from a domain. This new information gives specific information about why there is no data in a specific domain for a student. If a student has a domain that indicates not tested, they receive 0 points for that domain. And when calculating the composite score, the total number of the points in the completed domain and the non-tested domain are added together to determine that scale score. If a student has a domain that indicates exempted, the student's composite score will be based on the student's performance on all the items from the completed domain. Therefore, the overall composite score is not affected by the exempted domain. As we take our deep dive into Summative ELPAC, the ELPAC domain information sheets published by the CDE can be a useful resource. This resource is designed to help classroom teachers better understand the expectations of each area. The primary focus of the domain information sheets are to describe the different task types within that portion of the assessment. As we look at the results in CERS, the task type descriptors can help us with the analysis of the domain and the composite level reports in CERS. I know in our LEA that these have been a wonderful tool in helping to train our teachers, our administrators in how to really analyze and understand those next steps for students. The domain information sheets will help us use that data and move learning forward in the classroom. These sheets are also available in Spanish, which may be helpful when explaining the test format to parent groups and thinking ELAC, migrant group, and family meetings. There's a link in your resource guide to use these domain information sheets and take a look. We want to give you a few minutes to look at the domain information sheets now. It's a busy time of year, so we want to honor your time to look at them. I'll go ahead and set my timer for 2 minutes for you to be able to pull up those documents in your resource guide and review them. And then after 2 minutes, I'll call you back. Enjoy. Alrighty, I'll go ahead and invite you back. I know the first time I found these domain information sheets in a training provided, I believe, by SCOE. I found them super useful to transfer over into our PLs, our teachers in our district. So hope those are helpful for you if you're seeing those for the first time. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do our next live demo to take that little bit of a deeper dive for the summative results for ELPAC. Just like Teresa, who used the sandbox, I will be doing the same at this time. All right, so within the sandbox, I'm going to go ahead and select the role. I'm going to start though at the teacher level, give all of our kudos entering into the sandbox to our teachers. It's May, we're almost there. You guys are doing a great job. And I'm going to go ahead and select the 3rd grade student group here. And so like Teresa showed us as the teacher view on our landing page, it will automatically default to that most recent assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and click select assessments here. And then I'm going to scroll down and I do have the summative ELPAC icon here. Just like Teresa modeled for you, you're able to select and look at your summative alternate ELPAC as well as your CSA summative assessments as well. But for the sake of this demo right now, I'm going to focus on just our general summative ELPAC assessment. So we have those results here of 100 in our sandbox and our achievement levels on the left of 4, 3, 2, and 1 with that distribution on the right and that skill score in the error band as Teresa called out. One of the beautiful features that lives in our CERS environments live and in the sandbox are those icons to help support us in giving us a deeper understanding about what that might mean as we are interpreting results. It will automatically default to that overall. But when we scroll down to that student view, Teresa did show us how we can go ahead and sort out and look at the data as we would like to analyze. And a simple click of that export CSV gives us that Excel spreadsheet to be able to do all of the wonderful Excel wizard rules that exist in analysis for student scores. You all know who you are in this space. But I'm going to go ahead and show you next the composite level view. The composite level view, as Teresa shared, for oral language and written language. Oral language is the listening and the speaking domains of the assessment, and the written language would be the reading and the writing. It does give us those achievement levels and the distributions along with that skill score and error band for both composites of oral language and for written language. When we scroll down, we do get those individual student results as well, and the function of being able to sort and view as we would want to in analyzing the scores. The other view that we haven't seen yet as well is the domain level view. So with the domain level view, you are able to see the achievement levels of students' progress of beginning to develop, somewhat to moderately developed, and well developed, as we see in English language development standards. And we, of course, get those distribution breakdowns for each of the domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We can sort out and view the data as we would like to in using these features. But like I just shared on the previous slides, the wonderful new features within our live CERS environments in our CERS sandbox are being able to see when a student is not tested or they're exempted per their IEP. So beautiful new update. Thank you so much. Because we are now able to dig in a little deeper to understand the scores and actually what might be happening with our LEA trends, maybe for students on IEPs and how to support those students that would be exempt and how they might be able to access the other domains and those next steps. And then maybe do some deeper dives. Why was the student not tested? And be able to ask those questions, starting even in the classroom level for those questions to come up and figure out what could have led to a student not being tested and going into that overall scale score. I do want to point out one wonderful feature is that you can, with individual student data, you can download what is called the individual student report. It will give you that student's name, the school year it defaults to, because we are looking at that assessment. It is Summative ELPAC. And then when we hit create report, it's going to automatically bring us into our live or our sandbox to the My Report section in CERS. You will see here that here's that student I generated the report for, and we get that status of pending until it is complete. And one thing to keep in mind, one file, it does take pretty quickly, but when we are trying to generate maybe a whole entire class and the individual student report, it does take longer. It is already complete, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to download the report. So we are so excited to show you the newly improved individual student report. And I really want to take note here that the individual student reports, otherwise known as the ISRs, are different than the student reports that our families receive with those score reports, the SSRs. We love acronyms in education. But you'll notice, for those of you who have seen the ISRs before, that they are updated and they are just beautiful. We are given the students, their SSID information, their grade level, and a little bit of a description around that overall achievement, students' scale score and their achievement level, and how it breaks down within the scale score ranges. And we can see those cut points. And just like Teresa mentioned, they do change by various grade levels. When we scroll down, we do get that view on the individual student report of the oral language and the written language and their achievement level, and a description as to what is happening for this student and their abilities and their language acquisition. When we scroll down, you'll notice that for this particular student, he did have exempted domains of listening and speaking. So now with the updates, we are able to see, and it is taken note in the individual student report of either the exempted or if a student had a not tested. And so I actually did generate one that you could see the example of not tested in the domains as well. It is a powerful tool for us as educators in using the ISRs, but it is really important to keep in mind that these really are designed for teachers in the classroom and having conversations with your professional learning communities, having conversations at the site level of some next steps and looking at student placement. These could be a conversation starter with families, but it is very important that there would need to be an in-person, face-to-face conversation in having these conversations. It's so exciting that we can access these now with the data being in CERS. So just please keep those things in mind as you are going to go in and log in and download those ISRs in your time just shortly. I know you will. But I do want to show you just one last feature in how you would be able to download these ISRs in bulk. So in your student groups, in the sandbox or in your live environment, once you're in, up here, you'll notice the printable report option. Click here, and you'll need to go ahead and give a little bit more information as to what you're trying to download for. So for today, we're focusing on Summative, and we are focusing on the ELPAC. But we do have ELA math and science scores rolling in, so please keep that in mind as well. But I want to go ahead and generate that report for you, and you'll notice it brings us right back to the My Report section in CERS, in our sandbox here or your live environment, and it will give us that status of pending until it's complete. Remember, the bigger the files and the more ISRs you're generating, the longer it will take, but you would just simply click and download the report data just as I had done for the student in the sandbox wing. Alrighty, so it is now your turn. I'm going to go ahead and hand back the time to you. All right, so you'll have 10 minutes to explore, and you'll need to access the sandbox using the role that's closest to your role. So our teachers in the space today, I just modeled our teacher role, but our coordinators in the room, I would encourage you to log in with your roles. The instructions and the links are in your sandbox in the resource guide to get you started. Consider completing one or all of the following tasks. It's completely your choice. For summative ELPAC, find the composite in those domain level results for your grade level. Generate and download student level individual student report or that ISR. Export data in viewing group level results like Teresa showed us. And then for the alternate ELPAC or CSA, access those results in CERS and explore options available to view them. And as you explore, continue to put your questions into the Q&A box. Our colleagues will continue to respond as quickly as we can during your exploration time. And just a few reminders before we log in and have some time for fun. Remember that certain roles will not have access to certain features. The instructions for accessing the sandbox as a teacher and as an administrator are in your resource guide. And this is a sandbox, which means the data will be different when you log into the live CERS environment. This data is fictitious and it's not meant for analysis. And most importantly, since you're using the sandbox, have fun and click away. You cannot break anything. All right, we'll welcome you back at 4:24. Enjoy. All right, so I'm going to invite you to come back together with us. I hope you were able to explore the system and generate a few reports. So exciting having the data in our CERS environments this early. So helpful to us within the LEAs. We will move forward to our questions and answers. So now that we've had some opportunities to explore and reflect and the features within CERS, I know there's been some questions, so we're going to go ahead and pause. And I'm going to lean into our producer, Nikki, to help guide Teresa and I through that process.
Absolutely. We have lots of great questions that have come in and quite a few that we want to go through here in our Q&A. So the first question is there like a resource, like a how-to guide that we can give to teachers for how to easily view the scores in CERS?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are quick reference guides that are available that can walk you through those steps to be able to send out to teachers within your LEA. And the links to access those are in your resource guide and are a great one-page resource to be able to show those steps.
Thank you. They are excellent. Just highly recommend. Okay, let's see. We've gotten this question a few times in a few different ways, but it seems like people are struggling to run the aggregate reports in CERS. And I know it has to do with that state results piece. So can you walk us through how we can run those aggregate reports now?
Yeah, absolutely. So for our coordinators in the space, you do have the access to be able to generate that report in the aggregates report section within CERS. So in that yearly report option, when we do see the state summative results, you're going to want to uncheck that. And then when you do, you will be able to see the 24-25 results and then generate the report for your district. The state results are not out yet with, many LEAs still finishing assessments. And so you'll need to uncheck to be able to run that yearly report.
Thank you. That's such a helpful tip because those aggregate reports are great and you want to run them now and you can. Just uncheck state results.
Yeah, we ran into that with principals. I'm like, no, go ahead and check that button.
Okay, we talked about ELPAC results. When will the Smarter Balanced ELA Math and California Science Test results come out?
They are out now. They're trickling into the system. We did receive an email yesterday to announce that scores would be released today for ELA Math and Science, and they are starting to trickle into the system.
Happy release day.
Happy release day. It's today, May 15th. I love it.
And I know we talked about ELPAC results, but we've been asked a couple times for a reminder. So ELPAC scores, are they available?
They are. Mm-hmm. Teresa, do you want to touch on the amount of scores that are starting to be in the system?
Yes, I was so excited to see the number from our partners at the state. Results began kind of trickling into the system starting on May 9th, and we have almost 690,000 scores that began that day, and they're going to continue to show up in the CERS system beginning throughout the summer, and really beginning at the beginning of August, we'll probably see all those K2 answer books scored. So remember, the scores don't show up until the last domain is scored for summative ELPAC assessment. So yeah, 690,000 on the first day. That's amazing. Thank you to our state partners for
Phenomenal. We love it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about teacher level users in CERS. And CERS groups or rostering needs to happen for teachers in order to access their student scores. Is that correct?
It is correct. So CERS groups need to be created for teachers for them to be able to access their scores. So their students essentially need to be attached to them. And that process is called through rostering, and that would be a coordinator role. So, teachers, if you logged into your live environment and you don't see your student groups, please see your site administrators for them to support you.
And that's such an excellent reminder to the administrators in the room that teachers need two things, right? They need that TOMS role and they need the managed student groups piece done. Sticking to the topic of these groups, I love this question, but let's say I'm looking at 23-24 results in CERS. Am I looking at that for the students I had in 23-24 or the students I have now, or how does that work?
Tracy, you want to take this one?
Sure. Now that is dependent on who has been rostered to you. So if you have your current students in your classroom, which is usually how things are rostered, especially if you have, things importing from your student information system and it's connected to your TOMS account, then you would be able to view your current students. But you will have some cases and some LEAs, they choose to add in custom groups. And if you have a custom group from a previous roster or year, you may have then, access to your 23-24 roster plus your 24-25 roster. That's your default for your current students that you can, access. So the My Groups were at the bottom of the page, or that grade level search would be reflective of your current roster. So just again, depends on what has been rostered to you. And if you have questions, contact your LEA coordinators for your district or your site.
Thank you. I love this question for a lot of reasons. One, it's so customizable, right? Like who you potentially have rostered to you, but especially thinking about like early next year, you might get rostered to last year's students and your current students, and you can see data for both sets of students. It's awesome.
Very
okay,
cool.
Last one, and then we'll move along. This question was about the ISR, so those individual student reports, and we just want to clarify, should they be shared with parents or should we wait for that SSR, that student score report?
As far as the conversation, I mentioned that it is needing to be done in person because those individual student reports are built with educators in mind. And it's not something we would send home with families. But I know that our LEAs across the district have been working really hard, and it is so exciting that those scores are now in where we could this year, before students are going home, have those conversations. But the student score report that our families get through a portal in their student information system, or if LEAs choose to mail them home, or those video score reports, very cool. it is best that families have those as a resource. So keep those individual student reports at the site level. Please don't send those home, but you are welcome to have conversations with families if they're asking those types of questions. But very powerful as we close up shop and prepare for new year, of what we can do within our professional learning communities or site next steps for instructional implementation in the new year.
Awesome. That's it for Q&A. I'm going to pass it back to you guys to wrap us up. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nikki. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up with some resources, just one last topic. And as we talk about each resource, you will notice that the links are also in your resource guide. This way, it's easy access to have all these great resources in one place. And we want to start with the resources section with some ELPAC resources. All of the resources we mentioned are in that guide. First up are those domain information sheets that we already had you take a look at. And we do want to mention that these sheets are also available in Spanish, which may be helpful when explaining the test format to parent groups. A couple of us in our reflections said how wonderful those would be to have conversations with families. So we're so happy they are translated in Spanish as well. And in addition to the domain information sheets, there are task type information sheets for the alternate ELPAC. These information sheets are designed to help teachers better understand the expectations for our students taking the alternate ELPAC. And the primary focus of these information sheets are to describe different receptive task types and expressive task types. Another great resource is the ELPAC information guide, which is updated annually. The guide provides an overview of the ELPAC, information on special programs for classification, and guidance on reporting and using individual results for the ELPAC. Then we want to move on to some CERS resources. We want to make sure to call attention to that CERS user guide. I know Teresa showed us earlier, thank you so much, but it explains so many of the features and functions of CERS. Its companion, the CERS Interpretive Guide, is designed to help educators and other stakeholders interpret assessment reports in CERS. Together, we explored the CERS sandbox, so now you have a link in the resource guide to share with other educators who want to learn about CERS. We have handy quick reference guides that we talked about in our Q&A, which walk you through your step-by-step through your various CERS functions, how to review results by school, how to view individual student results, and how to view writing trait scores when we are looking at the summative ELA assessment. Your resource guide also has a link to understanding the California Educator Reporting System video. We also want to remind you that the introduction to CERS trainings were recorded as a series of micro-learning videos, and this allows you the flexibility to watch the entire training all the way through, or you could view specific topics without having to view the full training. And lastly, be sure to visit the CERS resources webpage for more detailed information and additional resources. Another great resource is a virtual training series found in Moodle. There are 14 modules and a new overview video, including in the series, all focused on how educators can improve teaching and learning for our multilingual learners. The modules were designed with all levels of educators in mind while trying to support educators who are either newer to the field or who have not had a lot of experience in looking at English learner data. Additional information about each module and the links to access are in that resource guide. And we also want to call out that registration has just opened for the 25-26 Introduction to CERS trainings. And there will be 2 different trainings this year, the Introduction to CERS for teachers and the Introduction to CERS for test coordinators and administrators. These trainings will be the same as the sessions from previous years. Sessions for both will be available in the summer and in the fall. The dates and times for the sessions, as well as the links to register, are in your resource guide. If you attended last year, please pass this information along to others at your district or your site to help us spread the word. And with that, we've come to the end of our training. We hope you found some useful information on how to use the California Educator Reporting System. Give us some feedback. Please take 3 minutes to complete a quick post-training evaluation. We would really appreciate it. And when you close the Zoom, you will see a link to the evaluation in your browser. And to close, on behalf of the CDE, the Sacramento County Office of Education, and your training team, we thank you for spending your time with us today. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.